Dzień dobry, dzień dobry, dzień dobry. Witam wszystkich Państwa bardzo, bardzo serdecznie na dzisiejszym spotkaniu dość nietypowym jak dla naszej firmy, a mianowicie dzisiejsze spotkanie, po pierwsze mam dwójkę gości, ale również nasze spotkanie i nasz dzisiejszy live będzie przeplatany i będzie głównie w języku angielskim, nie w języku polskim. Będziemy oczywiście starać się w języku polskim tłumaczyć niektóre rzeczy, będziemy starali się, aby w języku polskim dzisiaj także co nieco powiedzieć. Oczywiście komentarze możecie pisać w języku polskim bądź w języku angielskim. Chciałbym dzisiaj porozmawiać na temat, który jest bardzo istotny aktualnie tu i teraz i dzisiaj, a mianowicie mamy bardzo dużą ilość przedsiębiorstw, które wzięły kredyty, które miały jakiekolwiek dofinansowania, czy jakiekolwiek inne rzeczy związane z tym, że pożyczyły pieniądze do własnego biznesu, natomiast sytuacja gospodarcza zmusza te osoby do zamknięcia firmy, czy w ogóle sytuacja gospodarcza zmusza niektóre przedsiębiorstwa do tego, żeby się zamknęły, z powodów oczywiście ekonomicznych. I teraz odpowiedź na pytanie, co zrobić, jak rozwiązać problem zamknięcia swojej firmy, jak rozwiązać problemy, które są z tym związane. O tym dzisiaj będziemy rozmawiali z moimi gośćmi, których chciałbym właśnie przedstawić. Chciałbym przedstawić Darię i Hasiba z firmy, żebym tutaj źle nie wymówił, Hudson Wire. Tak prawdopodobnie wymawia się ich nazwę. Good evening, Hasib and Daria. I already introduced you to my audience, said about a little bit for that we are actually going to talk about the bounce loan and the problems for the companies which they are in a not very good situation, the financial situation, and they need to be closed down. And I hope I pronounce the name of your company correctly. If not, please correct me.
Thank you very much, Simon. Yes, you had a good pronunciation of the name Hudson Wire. My name is Hasib Howlader. I'm an insolvency practitioner, also a chartered accountant and chartered tax advisor. I'm here today to help as much as I can with any common questions regarding liquidations, insolvencies, and business rescue, and of course my colleague Daria, who's helping you guys and your clients.
Yeah, exactly. That's Daria as well.
Yeah, so
me and Daria, we're going support those people which they struggle with a language for some translation, and we're going to sometimes repeat what we said in English. We're going to say that in Polish. That, as I said, you can answer the question in Polish or in English. In English will be probably much better and easier for Hasib to have a look on the question and answer it. Hasib, if you can explain, please, who's the insolvency practitioner? What the insolvency practitioner is doing? Because many people don't know what's the job actually behind that name.
An insolvency practitioner is someone that is licensed indirectly through the government and to deal with companies and individuals that have debts that they cannot handle anymore. So we're like a responsible agent for the people who are owed money. So we're the inevitable consequence of when there's financial difficulties.
Okay, that basically to say, if I'm going to have a debt, and is it going to be of course, we are today talking about the company's debt rather than private, but as I look on your website, you do that for the private and for the companies as well, as a both support. But if I'm going to have a debt, can I shut down the company and say, okay, that's a limited company, I can shut down, send DS01 to company's house and forget it? Is it a good solution, or is it a good advice from the Facebook friends, which you can find on many pages and many groups?
Yes, I get asked that question a lot. I would be very careful before following that advice. If it's something where you tell all of your creditors, I plan to close down, and they're under control and they all agree, and you've done everything in exactly the right way, then it is a possibility. However, you need to be aware that it's very, very easy to restore a closed down company within the next 6 years. And it's also a criminal offense to try and do this DS01 without doing it in exactly this right way and getting the consent of not only the creditors, but lots of other people. And what seems like a cheap option is actually sometimes very, very expensive as an option. Whereas a proper liquidation, you don't need to worry about these things. That's my problem to deal with, how to close it properly.
That's very good to hear, as you already said, that it looks very cheap option, but it doesn't need to be necessarily the cheapest option when you look in a longer period. Because can HMRC or company's house reopen the company which I already closed down, let's say, a year ago?
Yes, easily. In fact, I've given advice to clients who did try to strike off the company, and HMRC and another creditor were trying to reinstate the company and simultaneously liquidate the company through the courts, where HMRC would be a significant creditor, and suddenly it's going down the court process with the official receiver, and you're not dealing with a private individual anymore. You're dealing with effectively the government directly, which may not be to everyone's liking. In addition to this, as I mentioned, I also have a separate accounting firm, and although my life is mainly insolvency these days, but what my colleagues have noticed, and from other accountancy firms that they've noticed, is that Companies House is getting extremely strict with people who are trying to strike off companies either by not submitting confirmation statements or so on. And they're even seeing threats of criminal action by Companies House and the government, which is one other reason not to go down that route unless it's in certain situations you can, but generally it's not the right answer.
Yeah, that's as well. We noticed that there is a much bigger trouble to speak with a Companies House and HMRC. They are not very keen and not very quick as it used to be some times ago, even to shut down the company which was dormant and there was no any debts and stuff like that. It's not so easy those days as it was 5-7 years ago. But as well, many people forget that they've got many money or some money to own to the people. What to do if I'm going to run a company and my company didn't pay the bills for rent, didn't pay the bills for the van or any other goods? What's the best solution to do that? Avoid or speak with people like you, and there is a solution that you can hand it over that problems?
Yeah, there is no cost to speaking to somebody like me. So if the time to know whether to speak to somebody like me is when the answer to the question, can I handle these debts as they fall due, cannot be answered that easily. If the answer to that question is not yes, then pick up the phone to me or send me a one-line email or to Daria, and we'll have that quick conversation. So if you're falling behind with the rent, if you're falling behind with rates or taxes or suppliers or any of those matters, then either you have a plan to turn this temporary situation around, or if there's no plan or things are not going according to plan, then the thing to do is to speak to a licensed insolvency practitioner. If you're unable to secure funding or some other route out of it.
Okay, let's switch a little bit to the Polish language and explain a couple of bits of pieces which we already discussed, and to summarize something with Daria. Daria, rozmawiając teraz właśnie przed chwilą, pokazując, że te opcje, które wydają się takie tanie, proste, że zamkniemy sobie firmę, bo kolega mi powiedział, wyślij DS01 i wszystko zamknięte, potem się okazują dosyć kłopotliwe. Czy macie bardzo dużo takich przypadków, że ludzie naprawdę przychodzą z potężnymi problemami, bo posłuchali kolegę znajomego gdzieś z Facebooka?
Na pewno mamy firmy, które mają na przykład nieduży dług, a chcą się zamknąć tak przez Companies House i wysyłają formę, ale często Companies House blokuje te zamknięcia, no bo ponieważ jest dług, tak?
Tak.
Więc no jeżeli są firmy, które mają ogromny dług, to lepiej po prostu, żeby zamknęły to w prywatny sposób, tak? Czyli na przykład za pomocą Hasiba, tak? Bo wtedy na pewno stres schodzi i wtedy Hasib jest tak jakby odpowiedzialny za reprezentowanie dyrektora i tak jakby dystrybucję środków firmy, żeby spłacić wierzycieli.
Super. Czy ty jesteś osobą w firmie, która dla osób, które na przykład obawiałyby się języka, mimo tego, że mówią, bo tu mówimy językiem specjalistycznym, czy nie do końca sobie radzą dobrze z językiem, czy ty jesteś tą osobą właśnie w firmie, która między innymi pomaga polskiej społeczności, aby przejść przez tą procedurę?
Tak. Moja praca generalnie polega na tym, że ja bardzo dużo z Polakami współpracuję. To było wymogiem, żeby znaleźć też tę pracę i ja jestem też taką osobą, która jest od pierwszego kontaktu, czyli na przykład jeżeli ktoś tak jest Polakiem, potrzebuje pomocy, to mój numer jest tak dostępny. Mamy bardzo dużo polskich klientów, polskich firm. Ja zawsze pomagam przez te pierwsze etapy. Mamy też pierwsze kwestionariusze w 2 językach po polsku, no i też jak później case admin, tak jakby jest już odpowiedzialny za likwidację firmy. A mimo wszystko jest bariera językowa, to ja również pomagam, czy umawiamy Zoom, żeby przejść przez wszystkie dokumenty.
Wonderful news to know, Hasib, as you have got a Polish support in your company, as the clients which they struggle with a language, they can get proper advice, proper support from your company in our own language, the Polish language, which is very, very nice and very good and helpful for many people. Okay, let's switch and start talking about bounce back loan, which they are very, very popular last year, but this year will be not such a popular as last year because this year we have to pay back that loan. Many companies took that loan with terms, okay, we're going to be in a lockdown 3 months as we've been promised. After 3 months, everything come back to normality, but as we can still see, it's not as it used to be more than a year and a half ago. What about, if you can say a little bit about what the bounce back loan, and is the company with that loan can shut down easily?
Yes, it's not a problem shutting down the company. The thing with liquidation that I often get asked is, can anyone stop me liquidating my company? The answer is generally no, they can't stop you. If you've got 75% of the shareholding and a control of the directors, and most people in the small business world have more than 75% between them, no one can stop you unless you have a debenture on Companies House, which is quite rare. So a debenture is a special kind of mortgage loan for a company. So long as there's not one of those, no one can stop you. What they can do, theoretically, is choose, once the company's gone into liquidation, they can choose their own liquidator. But even that is extremely rare in my experience. So if you've got a bounce back loan or any other kind of debt, it doesn't really matter how much is owed. Even if whether you owe £10,000 or £500,000 or £2 million, and if your company is insolvent and you want to place it into liquidation, you can. Exceptions apply, but you can. Now, can the fact that you've got a bounce back loan mean that you can't liquidate your company? Absolutely not. You can liquidate without a problem. In fact, it's probably more straightforward than most other debts, C-bills and bounce back loans, because there is no debenture, as I mentioned, and for a bounce back loan, there's no personal guarantee of any kind. So it's one of the simplest things to deal with from that perspective.
Okay, but obviously it's not like you can handle it yourself, but you need a proper advice still to go through that process. As Daria mentioned, that Insolvency Practitioner, it's taking out stress. It's one of the first things which probably for the most of the people which are shutting down the company they are in a big stress. And the second, of course, dealing with the so many other aspects to close down the company, because it's not just one document to send off and that's it. There is a kind of procedure which you need to follow to shut down properly the company with so many different aspects. And you're going to take that stress, that probably your life must be stressful or not.
Yes. It's easy to forget that it is stressful, because I deal with this all day, every day. I'm helping people dealing with this. So for me, it's kind of more automatic, but then it's easy to forget that if you're a director of a company and you've built up this company and then now it's got these debts that you can't manage, most people tell me that they haven't slept in weeks. Most people tell me that they're crying and they're not eating and having all sorts of terrible times. And most people don't realize that there's probably no need to feel like that, because that's my job to take care of all these matters and to provide you with a path back to a normal life, if it's possible. And if there's something that you really ought to be worried about, of course I'll tell you straight, but I'll point you in the right direction as to how to handle it. I've done so many of these, and rarely is it as serious as the person thinks. And if there is some problems that are there, then I'll we'll discuss those and we'll see what we can do to help.
Okay, that's good. Any advice or anything which you need to follow the kind of procedure, or maybe the information about the documents in order for the people which they see, okay, my company is not doing very well, and I probably have to shut down my company in next couple of months. Is there anything which you can give advice? What's the steps with the closing down the company, and what's the information that person should look at all of the documents to giving back, or giving those documents to you, that you can easily shut down the company? Because we normally do not prepare for shutting down the company. We mostly learn how to grow the company rather than shut down. Yes,
good point. There's a whole bunch of things to think about. So let's talk about the most important. When the company looks like it's in a bit of trouble, if you're a director, the first thing you should be thinking about is, how do I protect my position as a director? And the way to do that is to not let things get worse. Just think, you know what, I might be in a bit of trouble here. Let me talk to an insolvency practitioner. And then that person will guide you a little bit on the do's and don'ts. So I'm going to talk about some of the common things I say to directors. I'll say, look, be very careful when paying old debts. So, for example, if you yourself are owed £20,000, don't pay yourself £20,000 and then place the company into liquidation the next day. There's a special law against that. Don't start taking out 10 different credit cards from the company and borrowing more money and letting the situation get worse. Don't just trade and trade and trade and let the overall tax position get worse or the supply position get worse. The reason I say all of these are the kind of things that can make a director have personal liability, which is not what a director wants. You don't want personal liability. You want to, that's the whole point of a company. So you don't have the personal liability. So just take care not to let things get worse. If you are going to trade or continue a contract or buy a piece of stock to sell that piece of stock or something like that, then first of all, there's no obligation to do so. But secondly, if you think that you're going to do something like that, then write down the decision why you think this is a good thing for you to buy that piece of stock or to extend that month's lease with the landlord or something like that. So you can demonstrate to me or to the government or whoever that you did this for the right reasons. The other thing is, make sure your accounting records are in one place and organized and secure. Your bank statements, invoices, purchase invoices, make sure they don't suddenly disappear. The things that get directors in trouble is when those things disappear. You need to show that you've got a clean pair of underpants. You know, you got to show that you've got all these records in one place and that they're organized. If you stick to those basic rules, you'll be on the right path. And of course, tell me your exact situation, and I'll talk you through what you should and shouldn't do. But they're the kind of common things that I discuss. Oh, and one more thing: cancel your direct debits. If you're about to go into liquidation, cancel your direct debits. Don't pay for anything without speaking to somebody like me or yourself, Shimon, first. Just because you must treat everybody equally and fairly. And if you've got a direct debit going out, then somebody might be treating themselves much better than somebody else, and that's where you get into trouble. Does that make sense, Shimon?
Yes, absolutely. And you said very, very important thing, which I'm going to just say as well in Polish in a few minutes. That's, as you have got some money in a company, don't try to grab that money away from the company to pay for your bills, but it's still important, but leave it as it is. Don't try to steal anything from the company and go, my company, it's not doing well, but I'm doing well, because it's not going to help with the process of liquidation. And as well, the documents, which they are very important. So many people even don't know and cannot support the figures or the money which actually left the bank account. Why they left the bank account? They say, okay, yeah, because I paid to somebody, but how did you know how much and in which bank account? He told me, and on a Facebook he gave me the information on which bank account, and I paid the bill for something, or the last very a little bit stupid but weird explanation how somebody paid £30,000 for the stock he paid in cash, and he purchased the stock in Poland.
Right.
It's not the best answer. I know.
No, look, that doesn't mean that there are some people you can't pay, but I'm just saying, before you pay somebody, take a second opinion from someone like me. For example, many of your viewers may not realize this, but liquidation doesn't always mean the end of everything. It can mean the end of the old company. Yes, it does mean that, but the business can continue in a new company if certain things are done in the right way. So it's theoretically possible, and in practice possible, to clear all the debts from the old company, start a new company, and you say to the liquidator, I would like to buy the clients. I would like to buy the name. I would like to buy the customers. I'd like to buy the work in progress and contracts. I would like to buy the vans and vehicles and stock. You can do all of these things if it's done in the right way. And if you're planning to buy all these things and say, look, if I don't pay this supplier, then I can't continue. Second thing, which means I can't buy all these things back. So it might be that paying the supplier, even if you're treating that supplier slightly unfairly well, may in certain circumstances be the best thing to do. But the whole point is that's a very big judgment to make. And before you make such a big decision, it doesn't cost you anything to speak to a professional, to just say, look, can I do this? And then we'll give you the answer.
That's true. Tomasz Sowiński, yes, we're going to answer your question very shortly. Thank you very much that you put that answer, that question in English. But yeah, I'm going to just say a little bit and summarize something in Polish. Drodzy Państwo, jak słyszeliście tutaj już w tej rozmowie, bardzo istotną rzeczą jest mieć przede wszystkim porządek w dokumentach. To jest na pewno bardzo istotne i bardzo pomocne w całym procesie, jeżeli będziemy zamykali przedsiębiorstwo, czy przedsiębiorstwo nie ma się najlepiej. Więc musimy pamiętać o tym, żeby mieć nasze wszystkie dokumenty, wszystkie wydatki, wszystkie rzeczy, które wchodzą czy wychodzą na konto firmy, poukładane. Mieć oczywiście rozmowę, czy odbyć rozmowę z osobami takimi jak Hasib i Daria, które podpowiedzą Wam od razu, co można byłoby zrobić i w jaki sposób. Oczywiście sytuacja, kiedy sobie nagle wypłacamy bardzo dużą ilość pieniędzy z konta firmowego na nasze konto i mówimy, że firma ma się źle i ją trzeba będzie zamykać, nie jest najlepszym wyjściem w tym przypadku. Również sytuacja taka, którą tutaj przed chwileczką żeśmy omówili, że jeżeli wasza firma ma się nie najlepiej, możecie tą firmę zamknąć czy postawić w stan upadłości, natomiast możecie rozpocząć również dalszą działalność jakby już z takim bagażem pustym, takim świeżym i zacząć dalej kontynuować to, co robiliście, móc odkupować częściowo te rzeczy, które żeście zdobyli w tej firmie, która wam nie wyszła, bo mogło się okazać, że wasi kontrahenci wam nie zapłacili, czy wyszło wiele innych błędów, czy problemów, które zrobiliście po drodze, bo się po prostu z tego uczyliście. Więc to nie jest nic strasznie złego, to nie jest nic strasznego takiego, że w momencie, kiedy firma zaczyna iść źle, że musimy się załamać i broń Boże nie rozmawiać z nikim i to ukryć, tylko lepiej jest zawsze porozmawiać i mieć ten porządek w dokumentach. O tym pamiętajcie. Więc to o tym na pewno będziemy jeszcze rozmawiać. Bardzo serdecznie dziękuję za komentarze, również te komentarze w języku angielskim na pewno pomagają, udostępnienie tego live'a i wszelkiego rodzaju lajki i serduszka, bardzo serdecznie za nie dziękuję. Okay, now after my short explanation, I will ask and try to read a question from Tomasz. Can you explain how to pay bounce back loan after I have go to work on PAYE, which is very common those days, which so many people were tried under IR35 and right now being forced to went to PAYE, and suddenly what to do? Keep the company or try to speak with the bank, or the best come to you?
Okay, good question. Let me explain by talking about the fundamental concept of a liquidation. The company's debts, in a sense, they're not your problem anymore. If there's a £50,000 bounce back loan, prima facie, so basically, once the company goes into liquidation, it's not your responsibility to pay that debt back. Whether it's £50,000 or £30,000 or £249,999 in the case of a C-bills without personal guarantee. The only thing really you need to worry about is if the liquidator pursues you for something else. For example, if you owe your own company money, that's an overdrawn director's loan account, then you need to worry about that kind of thing. If you've committed some crime, and maybe even if it's not a crime, that thing I talked about 10 minutes ago where I said if you let the situation get worse, that part that it got worse for, you might have to pay personally for that. If you paid, I don't know, your brother £10,000 out of the company instead of HMRC or something like that, and then you put the company into liquidation, then you might need to deal with a liquidator for that. But apart from these kind of problems, you don't really have to worry about the company's debts. That's my job to say to these creditors, as they're called, hey guys, I think you're going to be paid X in the pound. It might be 0 in the pound, it might be 100p in the pound, but it's my problem to tell them that. So the question there is how can you explain how to pay back the bounce back loan after IR35 comes and I have to go to work on PAYE? Well, for those of you who aren't aware, IR35 has essentially means that your customer no longer treats you as a customer, which means that your company has no purpose, which means the company can't really exist anymore and there's no purpose to it. Which means that it might not have the money to pay back the bounce back loan, which means it's insolvent, which means you speak to me and I'll liquidate the company. Now, if it's been done for real proper business purposes, then it could well be that you don't have too much to worry about. If it's been done completely fraudulently, then that's different. But if it's somewhere in between, then definitely speak to me anyway, and then we'll talk through your individual situation. But it could well be that, hey, look, I've got a £50,000 bounce back loan. I've got no more income. what do I do? The answer is you liquidate your company. Or maybe there is another insolvency mechanism. For example, there's other company rescue options, such as company voluntary arrangement or administration or time to pay agreements, that kind of thing. But probably the answer is you need to liquidate your company if there are no means to pay this back.
Yeah, that's very good answer, and I think that many people which they are watching right now this video, or they're going to watch the video later, will see that that's a very valuable answer for that question. But you mentioned very important thing, but that was a director loan account. Many people even do not realize that, of course, in accountancy, when you look for the figure, you exactly see that where the money actually is in which pocket, and who's actually own the money, who's owned to which person. Is it very important to have a very clear information on a director loan account in the accounts, that we know exactly who own money to which person?
It's helpful. It's one of the things that I ask about before any liquidation, because you want to know what your future is. If in one situation you owe your company £100,000, you have £100,000 in your bank account, and the company's gone into liquidation owing £200,000 to creditors, then whether it's me or any other liquidator, our job is to get in the assets of the company. So we will write to anybody that owes the company £100,000 and say, please, can you pay £100,000 to this company? It's an asset of the company, and the liquidator's job is to turn the assets into cash and then pay that cash to the people owed money. So yes, I would want to know, if I'm Mr. or Mrs. Director, I want to know how much do I owe my company? What is the reality for me? Now, is it always possible to get that to the penny? Maybe not, but you want to get a rough idea and to have a discussion with somebody like yourself, Simon, and say, can you tell me what is my position before I put the company into liquidation? What is the position? And it gets a bit less than straightforward in the final 12 months, because sometimes people might be paying themselves a little bit of dividends. And as you know, Simon, those dividends have to come from profits. But yes. Is it profitable? Are those dividends actually just increasing the director's loan? These aren't always 100% straightforward, but you can get a rough idea. And that's what you need to have, a rough idea of what your director's loan position is before liquidation. And if you're overdrawn director's loan, which is where you owe your own company money, it's better to discuss with the proposed liquidator before you put it into liquidation. How is this going to be dealt with? It doesn't cost you anything, and you can always change your mind before going into liquidation.
Yes.
But
it's not that you have to be forced to go to the liquidation and you have to be forced to shut down the company. Of course, there are so many other ways, but speak with the professional. Yes, that's the case.
That's quite right. That's quite right. People can force you to go into liquidation before you go to voluntary. Generally speaking, that's a position you want to avoid because you lose control of the process. Yes. So I don't know if that answered your question on the overdrawn director's loan account.
Yeah, I will back and try to explain that a little bit in Polish in a few minutes. But we have got from Łukasz another question. So I can liquidate a company and carry on with a new name. I do reckon he probably tried to say to shut down one company and carry on doing exactly the same things what you were doing, but with a new name.
Yes, you can. If it's done in the right way, it can be done. The way to do it in the right way is that somebody independent values whatever was the good part of the old company, the assets of the old company. As I mentioned earlier, the contracts, the brand, the intellectual property, customers, any work in progress, stock, vans, vehicles, a lease, all of these things. If you're interested in some of those and you want to use them in your new company, you can do it. There's but you just have to do it by paying fair value to the old company. And the liquidator's job is to turn it into cash, as I mentioned. And the liquidator, if it's me, I just have to sell it to the highest bidder, advertise it a little bit, see if there's anyone else interested. But often the director does exactly what you say. They carry on, they liquidate the company and carry on with a new name. I've got something even more interesting though. It's theoretically possible to even use the same or similar name, but you have to be a little bit careful. You have to, if you do it without being careful, you can go to jail. So please don't do it without being careful. But if you, it is perfectly legitimate to use the same or similar name in a new company, so long as you let the people owed money know that this is your intention. So you have to basically advertise it in the local gazette. And there are firms out there, solicitors firms, that will help you through this process. We use 2 or 3 firms we introduce a director to the solicitor and say, listen, say Mrs. Director wants to make a similar name in a new company doing the same thing. Can you advise on the name part of it? And then they will advise on how to use the same name. But yes, a new name is absolutely fine as well. You don't have to do that last step. But to repeat, you do need to pay fair value for the assets.
That's a very good, because we were talking that, for example, if I'm going to, if I bought the van, which cost me £10,000 year before liquidation, I cannot sell that van to my new company for, let's say, £100. Can I or not?
Probably not. If you've really used that van a lot and it's totally damaged and it isn't roadworthy and no one else wants to buy it, and its true value really is £100, then yes, you can do it for £100. But probably not in that particular situation.
Okej. Jak sami Państwo widzicie, właśnie powiedzieliśmy o tym, że oczywiście jedną z bardzo podstawowych rzeczy, na którą trzeba zwrócić uwagę, jest tak zwane Director Loan Account, czyli konto, na którym zapisuje się, ile pieniędzy jest firma winna dyrektorowi, czy dyrektor jest winny firmie. Nie możemy mieć sytuacji, kiedy my jako właściciel firmy wybierzemy zbyt dużo tych pieniędzy, czy wybraliśmy pieniądze z tytułu dywidend, czy jakichkolwiek innych rzeczy i się nagle okazuje, że firmę postawimy w stan upadłości. Nie możemy tego zrobić sami z siebie. Musimy iść tą drogą taką właśnie razem z syndykiem masy upadłościowej, czyli z likwidatorem. Więc to musimy na pewno o tym pamiętać. Musimy pamiętać również, że jeżeli kupiliśmy, czy mamy wartość jakąś w majątku, to jeżeli kupiliśmy coś za sporą wartość, nie możemy sobie tego odsprzedać do naszej nowej firmy, bo możemy działać na naszej nowej firmie, nie możemy sobie tego odsprzedać za zupełnie wymyśloną wartość, musi to być wartość rynkowa. Daria, chciałbym się ciebie zapytać, w jaki sposób najlepiej kontaktować się z waszą firmą? Czy to ty byłabyś tą pierwszą osobą do kontaktu, czy lepiej w jakiś inny sposób do was zadzwonić? Czy najlepiej jest najpierw do ciebie?
To znaczy tak, zależy kto jak preferuje, tak, może być po angielsku od początku do końca, wtedy poprosimy na nasz główny numer firmy, ale jak ktoś dzwoni, to wystarczy poprosić, że chce mówić po polsku, to wtedy ta osoba będzie przyłączona do mnie, więc nie będzie najmniejszego problemu. Ale ja też mam swój tak jakby bezpośredni numer w firmie, więc chętnie się podzielę.
Czy nie ma problemu, żebyśmy mogli podać, jeżeli masz możliwość, napisać swój adres mailowy w komentarzach? Osoby, które będą chciały, żeby się skontaktować najpierw z Darią w języku polskim, aby móc być przedstawiony do firmy, na pewno będzie to bardzo dobra informacja. Oczywiście wszystkie informacje, linki, jak się skontaktować z firmą, macie Państwo w opisie tego wideo, będą zarówno na YouTubie, jak i na Facebooku, znajdziecie wszystkie linki, warto jest zapoznać się z tym, co firma oferuje. Czyli Daria, bym Cię bardzo prosił, jakbyś mogła napisać wszystkie swoje dane, żeby się osoby mogły z Tobą bezpośrednio skontaktować. Okej.
Będę potrzebowała pomocy, gdzie mam.
Jeżeli tak, to bym bardzo prosił, możesz napisać do Magdy Pilor maila, Magda by to mogła przerzucić, bardzo bym prosił, wtedy to ujawnimy, chyba że do mnie też bezpośrednio, to żaden kłopot. All right, let's switch to English. That we already explained couple of bits of pieces. We have got as well another question from Tomasz. Who I have to speak about my Baumbach's loan cancellation or suspend because government pushed me on the PYE that he cannot carry on working on a limited company. Is it good as well that the person should speak directly with a bank, because probably bank don't want to speak with me, or the best is say send all of the information to you, Hasib, and you're going to speak with a bank?
That's exactly it. If you are able to pay the installments of the bounce back loan without any problem, then and all the other creditors, then you don't need to speak to me. If you are unable to pay back the installments of the bounce back loan and your other creditors when you're supposed to, then you do need to speak to me or somebody like me. And so I guess that would be the first person to speak to, other than maybe your accountant. If it's just one creditor, I suppose there's no harm in saying, hey, bank, whoever it is, can I make a delay or some other arrangement or something like that? But as soon as you have more than one, what's the point? You have to talk to everyone and try and manage all these things. That's why we're here. That's why we're licensed insolvency practitioners. Thomas, in answer to your question, speak to your accountant first and an insolvency practitioner second.
Okay, I find out the email for Daria, which I already put on the comments, that the people which they would like to contact with Daria, please use that email address. And as well, that's a question from Łukasz. Also, Hasib, can you see any increase in a small businesses closing due lockdowns? Can you feel that?
Yes, let me explain. So this time last year, we went into lockdown, and I was thinking, my goodness me, we're going to be really, really busy immediately. Actually, we were the least busy we were ever, and it was the same for the entire industry. There was not that many liquidations. We had 3 or 4 big cases, so we were fine. But in terms of the small company liquidations, the normal liquidations we talk about, there wasn't that many of them. And it's the same for everybody. And that continued until the last week of February. And then it started going crazy, didn't it, Daria? And all of March, all I've been doing all day, every day, and all Daria has been doing all day, every day, is talking to people who are saying, we're in financial difficulty, we don't know what to do. And now you think about it logically, of course, that's what's going to happen. This time last year, the government, we didn't know what was going on. So there was no point in acting too quickly. Then the government said, hey, we're going to lend you lots and lots of money. And it's not very difficult to get that money, to be honest. Oh, and we're going to pay for your employees up to a certain limit, so long as they're not doing any work. Oh, and landlords, they're not allowed to take you to court for the next period. Oh, and you know, business rates, if you're paying business rates and you're under a certain rate size, we're going to actually give you some money in grants. Oh, and even if you are paying business rates, there'll be a pause in paying it. And you know that March VAT quarter that you had to worry about? Don't worry about it for another year. You can worry about it in 2021, between April and June 2021. And you know, there's this law that where I said a minute ago, don't let things get worse because that would be personally liable for you. We're going to pause that for a bit. Don't worry about that for another few months. So this is just off the top of my head. 6 or 7 different bits of support that the government gave, all within the space of a few weeks were given. And the biggest two are obviously the bounce back loan and the furlough. So people didn't put their company into liquidation. Even companies that should have gone into liquidation normally didn't go. They thought, oh, all right, I've got some help here. A year later, now the government wants its money back. Yeah. They want this money, that the loan, they want to start getting repayments. Now they're saying we're going to taper down the furlough until end of September, and after the end of September there is going to be no more furlough. That quarter's VAT that was missed in March 2020, now you've got to pay that one and this quarter's VAT this time round. Landlords will soon, it's coming that the landlords will be able to sue and petition for the bankrupt liquidation of non-paying tenants. All of the things, one by one, things that were helped with a year ago are now being taken away as we come back to normality. But the position is a lot of these businesses were genuinely closed. People genuinely didn't have enough customers and so on, and they didn't have any business. So they've spent that bounce back loan money. They've got nothing left, and now they have to pay it back. So of course we're going to get a lot of queries. To give you an idea, Lucas, to give you an idea of how busy we are, I didn't do any other work apart from taking phone calls every day from directors for 3 out of 4 weeks in March. It's just new liquidation, new liquidation, new liquidation. To give you an idea, we're trying to find new staff. We don't have enough staff to do the work at present. So we've got a problem coming, and it's only going to get worse because it's September is when it gets really serious, when the furlough ends and everything like that.
That's very, very worry for all of the people, even if they are running quite healthy companies right now, because your clients, your customers may end up with a difficult situation with no money in a bank account or much lower income, and they could choose what they have to do. They can pay for your service, or they can pay for your goods, or they just need to pay the most necessary stuff in their life which they have to pay for it. As well, I already add Daria, I add your telephone number because I just spotted, because we were talking today, and I've got your telephone number which I put into the comments below. Thank you very much for the explanation. I do hope, as we already explained, who's the insolvency practitioner, what to do and not to panic, and don't listen advisors on a Facebook or any other social media. We explain that it's not the end of the year, end of life. There is still life when you liquidate the company, when you shut down the company properly. And we gave a little bit of fake hope for those people which they don't know where to look for the answers, or where to look for some help and support, which means your company can give them that hope and support. I hope that we already achieved that in today's video.
Thank you, Shimon. Look, I just noticed a comment from Lucas, who's fair enough. He's saying it's a terrible thing for owners and their families. And yes, if your business has completely died then yes, you have to make an orderly wind down and walk away from it. But there are situations where it's not the end. It can be a rebirth if it's done in the right way. It can be a new era, a cleaner company with a fresh start. I am first and foremost business rescue. That's the main thing I do. I'm not usually an undertaker. I'm more of a business rescue expert, and that's why this regime is there, to help small businesses start again. That's why we have limited companies, so you can start again, so you can innovate, so you can take professional risks and not worry that it's going to hit you personally. So I hope it's not a negative thing. I hope it's as positive as it can be. And there's one way to find out, and that's to ask the question.
Yeah, that's. I hope that to summarize that what we are talking today, it's going to be some hope, some new ideas, new fresh ideas. Don't give up. Just try to carry on and then try to fight with the on the market to be the best. But as well, if you have got the problems, speak with the professional advisors, and those professional advisors will help you. Daria, Hasib, thank you very much for today information, for all of the time which we spent today. We were talking about 45 minutes, but now we've got 50. And I do hope as well for all of the people which are watching that video, you find out so many valuable information for you and for yourself. Bardzo serdecznie Państwu dziękuję za dzisiejszy pobyt i za wysłuchanie tego, co mieliśmy do przekazania dla Was, i mam nadzieję, że udało się nam pokazać, że zamknięcie firmy, likwidacja czy bankructwo nie jest to tą rzeczą taką strasznie najgorszą, o której zawsze myślimy, że zawsze są te możliwe rzeczy o tych, żebyśmy wyszli i byli dalej zadowoleni, mogli dalej tworzyć, dalej się rozwijać, a nie będzie to koniec naszego życia, naszej kariery. Więc mam nadzieję, że to wideo udało się nam też pomóc dla wielu Państwa w dzisiejszym programie. Thank you so much. I hope that there will be so many new queries from the clients which they are watching us to you. They've got all of the information for how to reach you. And good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, and thank you, Daria, for joining us. And good night, everybody. Good evening.
Good night. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Dobranoc wszystkim.